I'm going to hand it over to Mara, who, oh, sorry, not true. I'm going to hand it over to Robin, who is our partner in all of this. And we are so appreciative of being able to partner with the county and Office of Arts and Culture, because they really are the subject matter experts, and we appreciate their partnership.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Petra. And again, as Petra said, I am Robin Rodrigues, Executive Director of the Office of Arts and Culture. And I'm so glad to see you here today. And thank you to Thrive for having us partner with them on this informational little workshop for you. And I'll be turning it over to my colleague, Mara Grimes, Administrator Manager of the Office of Arts and Culture. But I did want to, again, just say welcome, thank you. And if you don't click open your emails tomorrow's monthly newsletter, I think you should consider doing it, because we have some funding opportunities coming up that will be in the newsletters. So don't just trash them. So anyway, thank you. And so you want me to turn it over to Mark? All right.
That's me all the time. I'm just going to talk because this is looking me. I'm just going to introduce Letty Kraus. She's the director of California County Superintendents Arts Initiative, and she is zooming in from Sacramento. And she is going to be able to explain how arts and culture nonprofits fit into what's happening with all this funding. We've gotten a lot of questions about how we apply for grants. There are no grants, but we want to figure out ways to work together. So she's going to have some tips on that. And then from there, we will hear from Allison Gamlin, is the backup coordinator for San Mateo County Office of Ed, and she wants you to know that she's funny, cool, and humble.
Wanted to take some time today to sort of share with you how we are interpreting the big picture around Proposition 28 and some of the areas that we know about and some that we don't know about, and how we're proceeding in the meantime while we wait to find out the full picture. So first, I want to acknowledge that it's easy to get bogged down in the Proposition 28 what ifs and the rabbit holes, and forget to take a moment to celebrate that finally, after I don't know how many years, we actually have a sustainable funding source for arts education that's not even part of the regular arts budget, and not really subject to the will of the legislature or the governor. And I think it's a very unique time and a very unique opportunity. And I think we should remember that it's a great thing. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging, but we can finally sort of change the conversation around arts funding and move on into programming discussions and things like that. So I try to remind myself that we want to celebrate that. We also want to celebrate that there's a lot of local control built into Prop 28, and that in many cases, how it's going to look really depend on conversations with your local education agencies and even school sites. And so those are both things to celebrate. Also, just acknowledging that there will be growing pains. We know that there are restrictions on funding that may unintentionally provide barriers to arts education and also lead to equity issues. We also know that there are staffing shortages that will complicate matters as well. But I really wanted to start by putting this slide up from our arts framework, our California Arts Curriculum Framework, that lists a whole slew of interest holders for arts education and kind of shows you that there's a full picture to our students and the arts education they receive, and that there are many pieces that play into it. And I would suggest to you that even though we have Proposition 28 now, and there are specific rules regarding staffing, et cetera, we cannot lose sight of the fact that everyone matters in this picture. Everyone has something to offer that is unique and important for our students. And so that's sort of how I wanted to open this conversation. Now what I want to do is just move into some of the specifics. So I'll be showing you some of the specific topic areas, and then I'll be highlighting a few areas and offering some ways that we're thinking about it. And I'm hoping those will be helpful to you as well. So can we go to the next slide, please? So I'm not seeing, there we go. Okay, so first of all, these are the details that we know about the funding that I think really the big details. So like I mentioned earlier, it's separate from the education budget. There's the rules about LEAs and enrollment and this 80%, 20% division. And I think this is part of what's causing consternation, not just for teachers who are working in schools, but also arts education providers, nonprofits who are also working in schools in a different capacity, but both of which are contributing to arts education. We cannot lose sight of that. So if we could go to the next slide, I just want to highlight a couple of things. So we're looking at the same list, but I just want to note that, again, it's separate from the education budget. So if you're hearing talk about, oh, well, we're taking away from other educational programs to provide arts education, that's not true. We're not doing that. We're actually getting a separate bucket of money, and that bucket is linked to how much is provided to the overall arts education budget, but it is separate. It is separate. It is meant for arts and music education, and only that, and nothing else. The other thing I want to point out is this thing about 80% of the funding for certificated and classified staff versus 20% for a variety of support, and that includes arts educational partnership programs. So I would say if we're talking about, well, can we contract with museum educators or teaching artists or a variety of nonprofits to come in and provide certain services to our students? Yes, you can. And I think your first target will be in that 20% of the funding, but there's more to that, I think. So let's set that aside just for a moment. And let's also note that the funds are available for up to 3 years. So while we're sitting here kind of swimming in ambiguity, I would propose to you, we needn't rush to develop a spending plan, because we need to remember that the funds are available for 3 years. If those funds are not used, but they were allocated to an LEA, they'll go back into the arts pool and they'll be reallocated out. And so I would just say what we don't want to have happen is we don't want smaller LEAs or LEAs that lack capacity to just refuse their money and put it back into the pot. We want to make an effort to help everyone use this money. So if we could go to the next slide. And in fact, let's go one more. There we go. So you probably already know this, but the funding will go to the California Department of Education, then they will go to school districts, and then they will go to school sites. What's unique about this also is that the site principals are the ones tasked with developing expenditure plans. So I would say that one thing to pay attention to here is your communication efforts. So who is it that you're communicating with when you are working with a school district? Is it the school site? Is it a lead in the district? Who is it? And maintain communication with that person so that you can be part of this conversation when it's time to develop expenditure plans. I would say it's early to be doing that because we don't know the rules yet. We have to wait for the California Department of Education to provide those rules and guidance, and they are nowhere near being ready to do that. So it's going to be an exercise in patience. Another thing I want to note here is that there is the possibility of receiving waivers. And I think this is probably something that should be of great interest to you who I'm speaking to but can't see, in that you're going to want to know and understand the waiver process. And it's possible that we'll have schools receiving money and be required to spend money on staffing, but not able to spend money on staffing because either A, there are not any certificated or classified educators able to deliver the arts instruction, or B, they're already fully staffed with staff. And so then I think this is where the waiver will come into play. And a school might be able to say, well, we want to provide music, we want to provide dance, we want to provide another discipline. We don't have the teachers to do it. We can't hire the teachers to do it. But we have these providers who we've worked with for years or who are new to us, and they can do this for us. And so we want a waiver to the 80% rule. So again, I'm not inside in the rulemaking process. I'm trying to get there, but I think that the waiver will be very important. It's going to be important for nonprofit providers, and it's going to be important for schools that don't fit the 80-20 mold that, that the proposition has written into it and need some flexibility, because we remember that the goal here is arts education for all of our students, equitable access. And I would say that nonprofit arts providers play a key role in helping to ensure equitable access to all students. And so your place at the table has never been more important, I would say. And then the other issue here that's really got to shake out from the department is the whole idea that these funds must supplement arts education programs. So my question would be, and something for you to think about is, are you already working in a district with a school? Is that funding already set aside for you? Is it in their LCAP? Well, then that would possibly count as a baseline already accounted for part of their arts program, and therefore Prop 28 money cannot really take the place of that funding. That would be supplanting that funding. And so the idea is to grow arts programs. And so we're looking at supplementing what's in existence. And so this is one of the more stressful exercises, I believe, for LEAs right now, who's waiting for CDE to tell us how is that rule of supplement versus supplant going to look. And so we're going to have to be patient while we wait for all of that to shake out as well. Now, if you would please go ahead and advance one more slide. Oh, go back, please.
No, sorry.
That's okay. We're looking for the response encouraging rating, slide 11, I believe. Okay. So while we, I think everyone who works in arts education in whatever capacity is simultaneously excited, but also anxious about what does this mean for us? Do we need to get into gear? What do we need to do? How are we going to fit in? And so what we're encouraging through the county superintendents and our county arts leads and regional arts leads is just the idea of being ready. So we're encouraging readiness while we wait and be patient for the guidance. And that includes, maintaining a growth mindset about it. Like I was saying earlier, when you have growing pains, a growth mindset can be helpful to manage that. I also think in your case, probably encouraging or ensuring that you're really in communication with the partners that you're working with and other interest holders. We're encouraging LEAs and counties to undertake an inventory of their current existing offerings, including who is teaching what, where, how much, how often, and key, what is the funding that is paying for that right now? Because in theory, all of that right now represents the baseline of what's being offered in the arts. And the money for Prop 28, in theory, should be used to grow the program. So really a place to start is for LEAs, districts, and counties to understand how they're spending their money on arts education and on who and where, et cetera. And so just, I think, maintaining your own voice in that, and perhaps, you know, reconnecting, reminding, and helping LEAs understand their whole big picture and how you fit in is important. I would also say this is a good time to really ensure you have capacity for the newest version of our art standards in this state and our newest arts education curriculum framework, because this is all common language that we use when we share students. So no matter what piece of the puzzle you hold as a provider, as an educator during the regular school day, outside of the school day, whatever the role is, where we come together is around the standards and the framework. And then finally, we are encouraging strategic planning. So we know that there are many counties and districts that have developed strategic plans over the years around the arts. And then we know there are many that haven't. And so while we cannot, we can't push everyone to have a plan right now because they take time to develop, we are encouraging people to go back and look at their strategic plans or begin to make them. And we know that a lot of the strategic plans that do exist have been made in concert with other organizations in their communities and other providers and cultural assets. So it's important to just be looking at what is the plan, or how are we going to get to a plan, and just maintaining that communication. And so I think I have one more slide. Okay, so this just kind of sums up, these are some resources around what I've been saying. I just wanted to show you a snapshot from the Arts Framework, Chapter 9, where we outline the fundamental arts education components. And this comes from, we did this, I don't have my citation with me, but it's kind of a visual that we're going to use with administrators and leaders who have decision-making power around a reminder. These are all of the components of arts education. And we have to remember that there's a lot there. And so there's a lot to think about in terms of what we're spending on. And then I want to add again, and what we're going to look for waivers for. Also, so I have a link to our Q&A document that we're using with our counties. It brings up questions that they're asking frequently, and they include how does everyone fit into the picture? And some of the answers that we've provided are, we have to be patient, we have to wait. The answers are going to come from here or from there. We intend to update those questions and talking points as the picture becomes clear. And I still think it's going to take a few months for us to get there. I also have a link to the art standards and the framework in case that's helpful to you. We have a module called Leadership in the Arts that we are, that's available on our website for free, that has a lot of pieces, and in case that's a helpful reference to you. And then I think the biggest helpful reference is the actual text of Proposition 28, because it really does spell out a lot there, and can help you sort of get an understanding of the picture. But I did highlight earlier some areas that we don't know yet. So that's kind of my overall statement about Proposition 28 and what we know and what we're doing. I would say we are convening people, we are gathering best practices around these problems, and we intend to share those widely. And so the questions and talking points document that we have now, in my dream, in a few months, we will have some answers, some models, some strategies, and those will include all of the pieces of our arts puzzle, all the people that provide arts to our students. And so would you go to my next slide, and that will be my end. So kind of my message here today, in case you didn't get it yet, I'll say it again to be annoying, but it's just that all of us who have an interest in the arts and who provide unique services and educational concepts to our students, we're going to have to work together. And because we all equal the answer to equitable implementation, we need everyone at the table. Everyone plays a role. So thank you for listening to me. I regret that I can't be there to see you and talk to you, but thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Letty. Just so you know, you were talking to a room of about 40 arts educators. So they're very excited to hear from you. And I do want to give them an opportunity to ask you questions. That's okay. Yes.
In funding, what art disciplines are prioritized and how allocations into elementary and middle school?
You probably couldn't hear that, could you? Who decides? I'm going to forget it. Who decides the allocation?
Yeah, who decides?
Here, hold on.
The allocation.
Who decides what art disciplines are prioritized and how the money is allocated between elementary, middle school, and high school?
Okay, so there's a formula. So the second question first. There's a specific formula, and it's so schools, this is the tricky part. Schools will receive their allocation based on enrollment, and the money will go to LEAs, but the allocation is per school and by enrollment. So that's part of the answer. The second answer is it's local control. And so Prop 28 calls out school principals as the person putting together the expenditure plan. And so this is why I go back to the whole point about a strategic arts plan, because usually when an LEA has been able to put one together, there's usually a plan for expanding new disciplines, etc., baked into that plan, so that when money does come, it's like, oh, what are we going to do? More dance, more arts, visual art. What are we going to do? Oh, here it is in the plan. So in theory and on paper, the principal could decide, oh, well, we have one music teacher. Let's just add 4 more disciplines and we'll have all 5, and then put that in their plan. But I don't think that's how it's going to happen. And this is why I'm emphasizing communication. Whoever is coordinating in the district that you work in or work with, that's the person who's going to maybe be coaching site principals or putting together a plan. Another thing to think about here is you're going to have smaller schools that give really small pots of money, which is why I keep saying equity, 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 and are not going to be able to do a lot with that small pot of money. So one of the questions that we're asking and we're looking for is how schools can share money and therefore share programs or staffing among schools. But who decides? In theory, that is the site principal. But I think we all know that there'll be district support in making these decisions. School principals have a lot to do. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there more questions? Okay, I will bring you the microphone again, but this time, sorry, same person has a question, but this time he's going to introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Sonia with Music for Minors. My next question is, what is the reality of schools being able to implement this fall?
Oh, I think I heard, let me just say it, make sure I heard it right, is what is the reality of being able to implement in fall?
Yep.
So honestly,
hold on just a second.
On the pilot, it will be towed in 15 minutes. Any Honda pilots? All right.
Okay, sorry, continue, Letty.
Someone getting towed?
Someone's getting towed, but nobody in
this
room.
Okay, no, I think that it's, we know there are districts that have a really slick network in place and could probably implement in fall, even if guidance from CDE doesn't come until May or June. But again, this is why I emphasize the 3 years to spend funds, because I really feel like the smart thing to do here is just slow down and have conversations. And again, we're encouraging this with our counties and districts that we're talking to. is don't jump and rush, because we still don't even know what the rule is going to be from CDE about what the baseline is. So schools have to be able to account for what is currently in place, and that funding has to go only to supplement or grow it. So the reality of being able to jump in right in September with a full-fledged plan, I think is not one for most people. That's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for anyone, but this is also why when I'm talking to you, or yesterday I was talking to the county superintendents, I'm saying to everyone, slow down and understand your program first. That's more important than anything else. That's how you're going to know where are the gaps, what is needed, what small LEAs are going to need to share resources, and what waivers are we going to need to ask for. So I would say fall, not likely. But again, there are superheroes out there who could probably do it.
Okay, we have another question. She's going to come up. Thank you.
My name is Susan, and my question is, if a school is funding their art programs through their PTOs or PTAs, is that included in what's existing, or can it be supplement?
Okay, so this is one of the questions. So you may be aware of Create California, probably. Create California is an advocacy organization. So we work, we communicate with Create California all the time. And together with Create California, we're working on trying to communicate with CDE or get early communications. And that's one of the key questions. And does that money count in the base? I think that we share the opinion with Create California that it shouldn't, but we're not the decision makers. I was just on a meeting just a couple hours ago where our presenter from Create felt confident that those monies would not be included in the base program. But I honestly can't tell you the answer, because this is going to be a lawyer decided. This will be involving CDE legal, no doubt. I have no doubt about that. I don't think I mentioned, I just came from CDE just 6 months ago. So I do have a lot of knowledge about how things are done and how long it takes and what the staffing situation is. So that's part of what's informing my answers.
One more question.
My name is Mary Lynn Fitton. I'm with the Art of Yoga Project. So we're a community-based organization, and we pair the practice of yoga with all forms of creative expression. My question is, for this funding, what credentials do the art educators have to have? I want to make sure that we have the people we need.
Are you speaking about teaching credentials specifically? Like,
Hold on. Okay, start again. Sorry, I'm running with a microphone. Go ahead, Letty.
when you said credentials, do you mean specific teaching credentials like CTE or?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a very interesting question because the proposition language says only about the 80% they say credentialed and certificated educators for the 80%. They don't say, so does that mean you could have a math credential? What does that mean? And the other aspect of that is a lot of the questions that we've been fielding are about kind of CTE credential work, which to me, just my first gut reaction is, why not? It's a teaching credential. So I don't know, but if I read the legislation just the way it is, it says credentialed and certificated staff, which I find to be very interesting, honestly, because it seems to open a very big window, even to districts hiring classified staff, you know, or it's just interesting to me. It seems wide open for interpretation to me, but again, I'm not going to be the interpreter. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer.
Okay, one more question.
My question is, what does 3 years mean? And I feel kind of dumb asking this question, but is it basically that it's an annual allocation to the schools that they will receive, and then they have a 3-year long window to be able to use those funds? Is that correct?
Were you able to hear that?
I think I heard it was, what does 3 years mean? And then an apology for the question, which is no need for that. But it means, so 3 years, so 23-24 allocation, you have 3 years for that bucket. Starting, so it's, you know, July to July is the fiscal year. And so that particular bucket, you have 3 years. So there will be, so this also, you know, makes it challenging for schools, because there are going to have to be people there really accounting for what funds came in, what year did they come in, and ensuring they spend them in time. But also I'm proposing sort of the waiting game of, I mean, even if you say take this coming fiscal year and next year and lump that together to spend, I mean, but yes, in theory, it's 3 years for each year of allocation.
Okay, you're getting some heads nodding, so I think we're understanding. Any other questions now that the room is warming up? Okay, I think we're out of questions. Letty, thank you so much for giving us as much wisdom as you have. I totally understand that more is coming. You're getting applause. I don't know if you can hear it. Thank
you. That's very kind.
Thank you. And if you want to stay on when Allison's on, you're welcome to.
I do. I like my colleague Allison, and I would love to listen to her. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, just come on up. I'm just going to pin and unpin.
Okay, great. This mic. Thank you. Should I put it on? It's, if you want. Can I even be seen over this thing? I'm like such a shorty. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for all your great questions. I think I can address some of those on a local level. My name is Allison Gamlin, and as Mara introduced me, I'm the arts coordinator at the County Office of Education. For those of you who aren't familiar with what we do, we're a government organization, not an educational organization. We receive money, we help distribute it to schools and districts, and we can offer support and training, but we can never tell schools or districts what to do. I also have taught high school, before this role, I taught high school theater, tech theater, advisory, video production, and English for 15 years. Right on the peninsula. And through my work in the arts, I got to know a lot of the nonprofits. And I don't know if all of you are just focused here in San Mateo County, but I'm guessing some of you might work with the whole Bay Area. Some of you may, I'm not sure. But just to make all of that clear. So I'm here to talk a little bit about what I know about our county. San Mateo County is huge, as many of you are aware. It goes all the way from the Bay to South City, through Pacifica, Half Moon Bay, La Honda, Pescadero, back up through the Woodside area. We cover a lot of ground, and there's a huge, really disparity in the arts access and programming. For example, Bayshore is a tiny district and one K-8 school with one arts teacher who teaches all grade levels, all arts, right? And then we have Half Moon Bay High School, They have a little bit over 1,000 students. Over half of the whole school is enrolled in visual arts. It's the only arts program they can afford to offer. No drama, no dance. Oh, they have music. I lied. They do have music, but just those two. And they only get $2.14 per student per year. So they have to make up all the rest of their funding from parent donations or kids like volunteering. San Mateo Union High School District and some schools in the Sequoia High School District have full media arts, like MAC labs, full dance programs, fully staged musicals, right? Like fully funded programs, really. So what do those districts do if they are, you know, to some extent, to a majority of the extent, fully funded? Those would be schools that might ask for a waiver because they don't really need more staffing. They might be able to use some to bump up a few teachers to be full-time, but they might need that for equipment, or they might need that to bring in like SF Shakespeare, or to work with a nonprofit to kind of enhance some of what they're offering. What else did I want to share? We also, so I would definitely love to meet all of you, and please get on my roster if you would like to, because I'm often asked by different schools and districts. Like I just helped Bowditch Middle School in Foster City hire a professional actor to come in as a long-term sub for their drama teacher who's leaving for maternity leave. And they, just kind of going back to the earlier question around what are the credentials that are needed, it depends on the district. Right, as we're in such a teaching crisis right now. Some districts, San Mateo Foster City is now only asking for a bachelor's degree. Right, some are allowing people to come in if they're in a teacher internship program. For some of them, I don't know if any of you are familiar with CTE, Career Technical Education, but there's a little bit of a loophole there. I have a credential in CTE as well. Whereas if you have a bachelor's degree and can show 1,000 hours of work experience in your industry, I was able to take one online class in a month, one summer, and get my CTE credential. There's of course like more paperwork to submit, but it doesn't have to be the like year long of credentialing classes. What I have seen throughout our county and what I'm recommending in the community of practice that I'm creating with our school and district leaders is that we start building programs in the K-5 area first. Most of our high schools are doing okay. They at least have arts and music, but we're really seeing a huge loss in the K-5 classrooms. I often see a classroom teacher who is integrating art into their daily curriculum with their adorable little kiddos that they have all day long, but they don't have like a school musical. They don't have a separate band class. They're just going at it with boom whackers or percussion on the table, which of course better than nothing, right? But we've seen since really pre-pandemic, huge loss of those arts classes, arts programming in our county. And then that is, I don't know, kind of a reverse funnel, right? Like if we're having fewer kids already taking music and the arts as younger students, by the time they get to high school, they're much less likely to participate, especially since high school can be so competitive. Students submitting a portfolio for AP art, or students auditioning for the musical or auditioning for advanced jazz band, if they haven't had those lessons all along, we're much less likely to see them participate. And of course, that becomes a huge equity issue as well. So what we're seeing, I know Letty talked about this a lot, and thank you, Letty, for this, but this is where our nonprofits will factor in with those smaller districts, right? So if a district only has, and again, a whole district, right, maybe 300 kids, then they might get $60,000 a year, right? Which is not going to pay for any one full-time teacher's salary. So what are they going to do? And we're often seeing these smaller districts in our more low-income areas. So it's kind of a perpetuating the lack of access in the communities that need it the most. I will be pitching and advocating for nonprofits who are excited about our California standards and frameworks, and who can provide a level of sequential programming. And again, some art is better than no art, don't get me wrong, but the nonprofits that I would like to see invited into the conversation more and really becoming a part of our school's plan are those who might come in for a residency for a month or two, or they might come in every single week for one whole semester. And they're really teaching like addressing scope and sequence, really helping to fill the gaps in, again, for the kids who will truly be needing it the most. What else would I like to touch on? I know Letty talked about the decision being made by site principals, and let's be real, they don't often know what is going on in their classrooms. I'm sorry to say, I can say this as a theater director, I would have 100 children singing in 6-part harmony, a student pit band, kids running the lights and sound, and my principals, and bless their little hearts, they would come in and go, wow, how do they memorize all that? I'm like, that's your takeaway from Les Mis? Okay. So we need to guide them. We need to really tell them what they need. And I think what Letty mentioned about taking inventory and really taking a look at what do we need to have, what would be nice to have, is the first place that I'm going to start with the leadership community that I'm working on. What else did I want to write? Again, emphasis on building sustainable sequential programs, and really helping to support K-5 schools first and the smaller districts who are in that range of not having enough money for staffing. And yes, again, to address the earlier question about what does it mean? So if a school is getting only $60,000, or what does it mean if funds can be spent for 3 years? If a school is only getting $60K, right? Hold on to your year one money. And then for years 2 and 3, you can spend, $90,000 a year, and then you can hire a full-time person, or then you can hire 2 part-time people and share them with a neighboring district if you don't live super far away from each other. So again, I feel excited about it, and sometimes I feel urgent about the arts, but I'm trying to, be guided by Letty and going slow and really being very thoughtful about the process. So I would love to open up the floor for any questions as well. Yes, and I shall bring you our cool little lavalier. Oh, hi, Susie. I'm good. How are you? Right. It's a good story. That is a great question. As far as I know, the allocation is per district is based on the ADA, or the average daily attendance from last school year. So it varies. I think, I don't know, maybe Letty knows. I don't know if Letty's still in there. We have just a proposed budget, but the governor is about to revise the budget.
Oh,
so we don't.
I'm here. What was the question?
Letty, can you speak to that? Susie's asking how much per student, how much is the allocation per student?
Oh, we have that link from Aaron that has, yeah, there's a site that has estimated this amount. So
right, I've seen that. I've gone through city by city, but I feel like it's still. Right, I know. Then there's the 70-30, 121 to 140 per student. Right, I mean, overall, I'm answering your question with just 5 million more numbers thrown at you, but it's $1 billion for the whole state. So it's not that much. In our county, we have 23 districts and about 86,000 students. So I don't think $1 billion goes too far in the whole state of California. It's a start. I do have a website I'm happy to share with everyone. I can pass it on maybe to Petra and you can share it. But again, they're just, what's the word? Not assumptions, but proposed.
Projections.
Projections. Thank you. How do court schools and, oh yes, they're absolutely eligible. For us, our court and community schools of Gateway and Hillcrest do fall under the San Mateo County office budget. They're definitely eligible. They don't have a huge staff, and their student bodies are often in flux with their numbers, but there are most at promise students and definitely need this level of support. Absolutely. Another thing to mention is facility use, right? I remember at Hillsdale we had a lab, right? We had 35 like gorgeous Mac desktop computers and very popular photo and video classes. And we even extended the teaching day to a 0 period and added an 8th period just to accommodate all the signups for students. But even then, like, we would reach a breaking point. So sometimes a school has the signups, we have the desire for the course, but there's just not like a room or a place available. So those are also things for us to consider on our end for sure. What other questions or comments or ideas do you have?
My name is Veronica. I'm from Are the principals of the schools gonna have like an education about this?
Yes.
They're gonna have so many, because probably they are the ones that need to know all this.
Absolutely. You are definitely right. I am going to be pulling together first the directors of curriculum at the district level and inviting the site principals to come to an in-person meeting at the county office, just basically to give the rundown that we're having here, but with lots more acronyms, right? So fun. And then I'll be creating a community of practice online to help the school leaders talk together. They will definitely need some guidance on this. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's in the works. Any other questions, comments, requests, dedications? No, sure. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Letty.
Thank you.
So I'm going to stop recording. Thank you, Letty. And we're going to hand it over to Mara for some conversation.
Thank you very much.